Hello listeners and welcome to another week on Chasm Converses. Allow me to introduce you to this week's guest, 19-year-old singer-songwriter Piper Butcher from Newcastle, New South Wales. We have an amazing conversation as Piper shares with me her journey through music, which led her to being in the top 24 for Australian Idol in 2023, to having some incredible experiences with big-name bands shortly after, dropping out of high school at grade 10 to pursue being a singer-songwriter, overcoming a cleft pallet and releasing her own original songs, having a surprise audition for Australian Idol in her shed in front of Judge Harry Connick Jr. to being invited to sing on stage recently with the band Boy and Bear. Make sure your ears are ready and let's get conversing. Chasm Converses. Piper Butcher, welcome to Chasm Converses.
Hello, thank you so much for having me.
It's really cool to meet you, and again, thank you so much for joining me today from Newcastle. This is exciting. I've never actually spoken to anyone from Newcastle before. How is it over there?
It is absolutely fantastic. It is the best hub for absolutely everything. We're so close to Sydney. We've got an airport. We're close to the beach. It is a hub. You need to come up and take a look.
I will. One day I will. I have gone to Sydney. I think on the way to Adelaide. I don't think you passed through Newcastle on the way to Sydney from Adelaide. But one day I will. There's a few places that I have to dip my fingers into: Perth, Brisbane, and now Newcastle can now be added to that very extensive list of places that I need to visit. But that's okay. Firstly, great name, Piper Butcher. Is that your actual name?
Yeah, that's my actual name. So I can't even remember where I got the name Piper from, where that sort of spanned. But I'm an only child, so they put all of their thought into just me and my name.
They did a great job.
Yeah, it's really cool. And there's actually another Piper Butcher in Australia. And we were both, we were born actually on the same day, believe it or not.
That's very strange.
I know. And she was born 3 years before me though. So, and there's like a couple of likeness with a couple of conditions we had when we were younger. I was born with a cleft palate as well. Mm-hmm. So yeah, she had a cleft lip and it was so crazy. But yes, good name, I can say that.
That is literally crazy.
Yeah.
But even so, no, it's a great name. It's like, it sounds to me like almost like a character from like a TV show or like a crime drama or something, or even like a wrestler or something like that, like Piper Butcher. No, it's like it's quite a cool name. It's one you don't really come across every day. But I love the fact that there's two of you born on the same day, 3 years apart. That's crazy. But wow, incredible. Well, I would love to dive in and talk to you about your music because, as I can see from behind you, you've got yourself an acoustic guitar there, another guitar there that looks like is that like signed by a bunch of people or?
Yeah, so for my 18th birthday, I actually held my own music festival and it was really cool. And my parents actually went around and got people to sign their guitar for my 18th. So it was really cool. And this is my dad's guitar. This is it's so funny that it's just sitting here. This is the first guitar that I ever played.
Really?
A little cheap ukulele when I was about 8 or younger. But other than that, yes, this is the first one, my dad's.
That's awesome. You also have a really good, you know how to celebrate an 18th birthday with a festival. That's fantastic.
It's the way to go. Yeah, it was about 6 acts at a venue in Newcastle. And of course, I put myself on that lineup as well. So
yeah, well, you have to. You have to, surely. It's my birthday. Like, I'm gonna have to play the guitar. Like, you guys got to sign it. It's the whole thing. Like, of course, makes a lot of sense. Well, I would love to ask you how you got your start in music. Like, obviously, your dad's guitar's behind you, so I'm expecting maybe he was a bit of an influence to you when you very first started music. So, take me through your very early steps in getting yourself into being a musician.
Well, I've always been singing around the house. When my mum's cleaning the house, I was with her. At the age of 2, I started, just humming and ahhing and oohing. Maybe I was destined to be a backup singer with the oohs and ahs. But I got in. I had a little pink ukulele when I was really young, and I'd just play one string on it. And I think, starting out really young with just one string, and I used to actually put stickers on the frets that I needed to play. And so that cool. I knew that, those are the ones that you use. And I went from there and through, listening to music with my parents, I heard the Foo Fighters and we went and saw them live in Sydney.
Nice,
And
nice.
it was just so amazing, and it was just so different and so energetic. And, not only Dave, but the whole band just had the presence, and it was just so enthralling. And Dave Grohl actually, in the middle of a song, there was a bit of a break, and he said, kids, get into your shed and just make noise, and then you'll be able to find your music. And I was 10 at the time, so I'd
Wow.
done a little bit of piano, love that sort of stuff. But he just said, he was playing this awesome guitar, and I was like, I want to do that. And so I got home, and Dad has had this guitar since he was about 14, and he's like, here's 3 chords. I'm not teaching you any more until you play 3 chords perfectly. And I was like, stuff that. I'm going to go learn myself if you're not going to teach me more than three. So I just went on my own, and that's where it began.
Damn, that's awesome. I mean, Foo Fighters is one of those bands that have passed me by. I haven't seen them live yet, but like, yeah, they are just incredible. Like I'm a fan of obviously them, and obviously back in the day with Nirvana and that sort of stuff as well with Dave Grohl. But yeah,
So,
he really does influence so many kids just to go out there and play music and all the rest of it. Even just doing it as like the classic style, like because obviously these days, like social media is such a massive thing with musicians and all the rest of it. And it's really cool that he still really advocates just like, just get in a band or just go by yourself and just travel around and play in front of people. Like, don't worry too much
yeah,
about like paying Facebook for this and Instagram for this. Just go out and play at a venue and people will spot you. And if you're any good, they'll want to listen to more of your stuff. So it's
exactly
awesome.
right. Yeah, and that's exactly what I did. You're exactly right. Just not worrying about the technicalities of what you should be doing as part of a music business, and
Mm,
that is really important. And I've gotten to that stage now where all of those things are important after doing it. But for the first 5 6 years, I was just doing cover gigs. I was doing like 2 or 3 a weekend,
mm.
playing 6 to 10 hours a week, just playing
Wow.
songs. It was just what I loved.
That's awesome. And you were just doing that around like Newcastle?
Yeah, mostly just the Newcastle region, building up a name here and doing a couple of random gigs here and there. And then I did
Mm.
something called the Academy of Country Music in 2018.
Hmm.
And that was really good for me to learn a little bit more about, having a presence on stage myself. And, I'm I'm a bit of a babbler, like even just talking, but on stage as well. So it was great to be
Yeah.
able to harness that in a really good way.
Yeah.
Um, be a bit more confident playing guitar. And now, a couple of years on from that, I've made lots of beautiful connections from there. And I get to go back now and support them. I've been an intern at the Senior Academy and helped other people with the same things that I got taught. And I'm going back there as a guest songwriter and actually an intermediate guitar teacher.
Oh,
So,
wow.
oh, yeah, I love it.
That's so cool. That's awesome. I mean, I'll go back to the babbling. Podcasts are perfect for babbling. So I will
Good.
let you run free with that. That's why I stay silent for most of it. I try to. But no, I appreciate singer-songwriters so much, especially a lot of my friends are singer-songwriters that have gone and played gigs at pubs and cover gigs and that sort of stuff. Even when I went overseas and I lived in London and I worked at bars, I would have
Yeah.
other like singers songwriters come in and they'd play at our pub and whatever, and it's such a good way for people to be exposed in front of other people and to sort of work on their shtick, as in work on their presence, work on talking to the crowd, work on just playing live in front of people. It's such a good way to do it, and it's something that's easy, like in the fact that it's easier to sort of organize because it's kind of on you to go out and put it forward to people. Like
Yeah.
you go out and you're like, yeah, can I play here? Can I play there? It's not like you need to get approval from like, a whole band to be like, oh, should we go play this gig? It's like, no, like I want to go play here, 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 here. And you can. And it's such a great way to get the exposure and to learn your craft. And I think, yeah, that must have been so beneficial for you to do all of that leading up to then writing, obviously, your own original music.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where I'm at now with, I took the big step maybe 2 years ago now. I'm only 19, so I've got
Mm.
a fair way to go. But yeah, taking that step, and I left school in year 10 to be able to do this full time because it was just getting so
Wow,
hectic.
really?
Yeah, I had to start taking exemptions from tests in schools, and I was such a nerd in school too. So
Right,
that was
okay.
me. And so, I thought, I'm just going to finish on a strong suit and I'm going to leave after year 10. And I've been doing original music ever since. And I'm so grateful that that's been keeping me busy and that you're right, did all those cover gigs that helped me get into gig mode and helped me get really set up for where I am now.
That's such a great story. Just leaving school at year 10 to pursue the dream of being a singer-songwriter musician. This that's a dream. That's an absolute dream.
It
That's
is.
fantastic. I love that you're able to do that. You've been able to do that. And obviously try and do it to the best of your absolute ability. And I love that, because you started to obviously release your own singles and that sort of stuff. You had an EP come out in, I think it was 2021. Which obviously was must have been huge for you to now put out your own original music to the world and kind of show them your first steps as being a musician.
Totally. And I was 16 at the time and there was people around me that were doing it, from 12 years up. And I was sort of a little bit worried about doing it. I was like, oh, I don't know if my voice is developed. And especially with, how I was talking earlier about my cleft palate, a couple of complications with that. And so what actually happened with that, I recorded in 2020 and I did a big band show and I was so excited to get these songs out into the world. And then I had to go in for surgery because actually how loud I sing and how much of a belter I am, I actually my palate started separating and the back of my mouth wasn't closing properly with my throat.
Oh,
and
wow.
so I couldn't project as well. And so, some things were happening and I got that fixed up and I had 2 months off music and I had these songs sitting there. For the first time, I was like, I get to release. And then I had to wait a couple of months and it was such a killer. And then finally, like you said, releasing for the first time after, a couple of barricades in front of me, it was just so fulfilling and it just made me so hungry to do it even more. Yeah.
Absolutely. That's great. It's awesome. Again, you've just got so many great stories. Like, my goodness, for a 19-year-old as well. Like, I think you've almost lived more life than most people who are your age, which is, fantastic.
I'm trying hard. I like to live a full life.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But no, that's fantastic. I love that, you've been able to do that and putting the songs out, overcoming obviously that as well, which is it must have been so difficult to do, especially as a singer, because all you want to do is sing and write music, and then with that in the way, it's an obstacle that you've got to overcome. But I mean, you've done it, so yeah, very much props to you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it was really funny, when I think this happens with a lot of people, when there's something or someone saying that you can't do something, you just want to completely act in spite. And, when I wasn't allowed to sing, I wrote heaps of songs, man.
Yeah. That's where the creativeness clicked.
Yeah, it just felt right. And, with the medication that I was taking to make sure that I was healing correctly, it was keeping me up at night. So I was up at 3 a.m., 4 a.m., this is going to be a banger. I've got this. And then my parents walk in the room and they're like, what are you doing up? And I'm just creating, man. Creating.
I'm doing my best.
Absolutely.
Doing my best with what I've got. Oh, that's awesome. That's just fantastic. And then obviously from there, bridging on to you've got Read Between the Lines, which was out in 2022. And then from there, 2023, you got involved in Australian Idol, which is just incredible. Can you take me through that?
Yeah, absolutely. So what happened there? So I got into the studio very early 2023, 2022, sorry. And after the releases of the couple of singles and then the EP, I was just so hungry. And so I went in with an amazing producer by the name of Matt Fell, and I just got in and smashed out 2 songs, and I released the first one, Read Between the Lines, and I had the other one sitting there. And then Australian Idol auditions sort of popped up, and I just thought to myself, you know what? I'm just going to try it out and see what happens. I'd love to do this to just promote myself, and where else are you going to get your face in front of, hundreds of thousands of people Australia-wide. And so I entered and I went through the processes and, met the producers and everyone in the show really. And they said, yeah, cool, we're going to fly you down to Melbourne. And I was like, what? I'm in Newcastle. I could go to Sydney. And they're like, no, we're going to fly you down to Melbourne. But first we're going to come to your house and just take some extra footage. Just so we can get a little bit of a backstory on you, so we know, where you are and stuff. And I was like, cool, this sounds great. You know,
Yeah.
even if I don't get through the audition, it's just cool to meet people. So
Yeah. It's
they
like,
came
damn,
out.
they're coming to my house. That's pretty cool.
I know, it was just really exciting to just dip a toe into that sort of reality pond. And yeah,
Yeah.
so they came to my house in October of 2022, and they chucked us in the shed because you know, my whole life has been around music, but as well old cars, and we have, you know, a couple of old cars. We've got a 1929 Ford Tudor, a 71
Oh,
Chevy
wow.
truck, a 63 Chevy Impala. So got
Damn.
a couple of cool cars too. So that's something that we love, and so
Sick.
that's what I loved to look at. And actually, when they were filming all of this backstory stuff to find out about me, it was quite weird. They were in a bit of a rush, and they were just saying, "Oh, we got to wait on another cameraman. We just have to wait." And so we were just sort of pretending to fix things on the car, you know, unscrew
Yeah.
and screw bolts and all.
Yeah.
And then everybody, it just went quiet, and everybody's just sort of backed up against the dark walls. And just all of a sudden, the door opened, and I just could not believe it. But Harry Connick Jr. walked into my shed, and he was
Mm.
like, "Hi." He was so suave. Like I say, he's the epitome of tall, dark, and handsome. He walked in, and he's just like, "Hi, how are you?" And I was
Mm.
just like, "Hey," and I just looked back down, and I was like, "Wait a second," and I looked back
Yeah.
up, and I could not believe it. And my dad was swearing, and that got aired on national television.
Awesome.
So much. Yeah, and then my audition happened in the shed that day, and they were just, I didn't have to fly to Melbourne at all. That was just all a bit of a trick so that Harry could come to my door and ask me to
Oh,
audition. So
yeah,
that was
that's sick. I mean, I saw, because obviously I watched the video and I saw that as well, and I was like, that is just awesome. And like, especially in that respect, like, it looked like it was one of those surprise things where you didn't know that they were coming in, but then to actually then audition in front of him, having that like surprise with you as well, and doing it so well is a
thank you.
massive credit to you because there's a lot
Oh,
of people that I don't know if they could have risen to the occasion of that happening to them. You know what I mean?
it was absolutely crazy, and it was actually unplanned. We did not know, any of us knew that, you know, Harry was coming. So that was a legitimate reaction. And so after that, I had a gig that night because I didn't think that I'd be
Oh,
auditioning. So I was like, I went to the gig, and everyone was like, "Oh, what'd you get up to today?" And I was like,
oh,
"Nothing,
yeah.
nothing. Can't tell you
Oh,
at all."
trying to
But
keep that
yeah,
under wraps would have been so difficult.
I know. And we actually had some problems with our hot water system the next day, and we had to get a plumber out. And like the plumber was standing right where Harry Connick Jr. was the day before. And
Mm.
he's a good friend of ours as well. And it was just so hard not to say, like, guess who was here yesterday?
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and so in the lead up to that airing the next January, February,
Mm.
I pushed out a song called Unconscious Mind, and
Mm.
it actually has turned out to be my best performing song so far.
Yes.
And it's been great. And so I chucked that one out just before the cutoff, and then
Mm.
went into 2023 with Australian Idol under the belt and got to the top 24.
Yeah, that's incredible. And what a great time to put the song out as well. It's good that you held on to that one for a little bit, just so you could then sort of like throw it in there. So then when people do look at Australian Idol, they're like, oh, I wonder who Papa Butcher is. And like, oh, she just literally released a song not too long ago. They just, you know, pump up the streams, whatever. And the music video for that song is also just like, wow, it's so nice, like really aesthetically pleasing and like very scenic as well. It looks like you're in like a few locations with that. Were you in a few locations, or were you sort of in like one, but like just like, you know, sort of around the place?
No, that was many locations. So I have to credit my dear friend Wanaji for that amazing cinematography. It was just
Mm.
so cool. So we come up with a couple of different locations, and I really wanted to factor in all of the earth elements, really, because Unconscious Mind is just such a raw song for me, and it's
Mm.
just so authentic, and I really wanted to sort of capture that in the earth, basically, with my music
Yeah, right.
video.
Okay.
And so we did, you know, a bit of dirt, which is a patch just out home here where I live. And
Mm.
then we went to some grass fields where Wanaji, the videographer, actually did some skydiving.
Mm.
So we're in a skydiving field. And then we went to these big sand dunes in Nelson Bay, which is a little bit north of Newcastle.
Mhm.
And then we ran down the sand dunes. We did those at about 4 p.m. and they were just absolutely massive. And you can see that in the music video.
Yeah.
And had to run down those sand dunes and then back up a couple and then down to the water's edge for about 7 p.m. before the sun set to get those water shots as well.
Oh, wow.
So it was pretty chaotic. And then I think it was the next day we did some fire shots and the band shots at home and a couple of those other ones. So it was very hectic 2-day shoot, and I absolutely loved every minute of it.
Yeah, wow. That's fantastic. As I said, it's such a nice looking video and it complements the song so, so well.
Thank you.
Especially like, with all the other stuff that you've got on there as well. But then, yeah, I guess like branching out from that, you were obviously an idol, and then like obviously that must have taken up the majority of your 2023, I expect, being involved in that whole thing.
Totally. Well, yeah, I was in Australian Idol until about March, I think. So, I was very hectic filming schedule in February indeed,
Mm.
and I had a very crazy January. I was still doing gigs, but I wasn't allowed to promote it because I was technically, beginning the Australian Idol process as well.
Yeah,
So
of course.
I was away. I think I only had 3 nights at home the whole of January before I went back into filming for the next phase of Idol. And so I did
Wow,
Tamworth
okay.
Country Festival for
Mm.
about 22 days. And then I got home, washed some clothes, and then went all the way down to Thredbo for Blues Festival in Thredbo Village. So
Yeah.
that was crazy. And like from the hot to going down there and the altitude difference, I started to get really sick. And so
Yeah, right.
was on heavy antibiotics for my last performance, and it was so crazy. And I had an asthma puffer every second sentence, and it
Damn.
was so hectic. And I was really glad that I got out on a high, and I really enjoyed my performance. And came out of that and just had the time to recover then and get ready for a couple of months ahead. And yeah, I wasn't allowed to perform for a little bit because of, the contracts and things, but that did just give me the time to come back down to earth. I think I really needed it.
Yeah.
And I wrote a fair few songs in that time about my experience and, all of my friends on the show. And, I guess how it changed some sort of people, and people hadn't come out of home. There was everyone from around Australia. And I was really lucky that I know Sydney a little bit in comparison to people that come from WA or Melbourne and all of these other things. So I wrote this song called In My Mind, which I actually put a live version out this year on YouTube. And it's a song all about capturing those emotions of not knowing where you are and what's going to happen and all that stuff about Idol. And that song really summed up last year for me in a whole,
Wow.
it took me a while to get out of that mindset. And of course, I used Australian Idol hopefully to the biggest of my benefit and to try and get my name out there, because I know it's a competition and, you just don't know whatever's going to happen. So I tried to really play it well. And I was so grateful to be a part of it. But it just really took a big mental toll. And I was out for a lot of last year mentally. I was doing gigs. I was doing gigs for the second half of the year and got back into that grind. But it felt so weird. And there was one time where I felt really whole again, and I sort of snapped back into action, which was when I got into the studio to record Turn a Key, which I've finally just released this year.
Yes, you
So
have.
being able to create again sort of set in stone that I was ready to go and ready to just take back the reins on what I was doing before Idol and get back straight back into it. And it's been really cool.
Of course. I mean, it must have been such a massive just journey for you, but then obviously as you said, like a mental toll. There's people from all over the world in that one spot, so obviously you're meeting people that you're getting on with, you meet people that you might not get on with, different walks of life, different people, all that kind of stuff. And again, like, as you were saying before, with like, the travel schedule, the filming schedule, that sort of stuff, for someone who I know was 18, I guess, at that time, like that's something that you don't ever really have to deal with at being 18 years of age. So having that like part on top of you then is a huge, huge switch in life. I mean, you look at other sort of, I guess, panel shows or shows in general where, they've got people there who are on that same kind of schedule that you're on. And now you're sort of experiencing that for the first time. You're like, oh man, this is almost like what these people do all of the time. And now like I'm getting to experience that. And now I guess because obviously that's now past and now you're on to your next stage of life. Is it something now that it obviously must have taken you quite a bit to sort of readjust back to life of like, okay, now I can actually be at home for prolonged for quite a good period of time, rather than it being just like 3 nights of the month in a way.
I know, yeah. It's I was really lucky that I did have some touring experience. So I did
Mm,
know that, you had to get as much rest as possible in such little time. But
mm,
that was so different. And because it was competition and there was cameras, right in your face and right in, the grid of it, which is what it's
mm.
all about. But it was pretty fight or flight, you know what I mean? Like we
Yeah,
were
yeah.
waking up at 4 a.m. to get ready and dressed and makeup, and we were filming until like 1 a.m. Like you're right,
Yeah,
it's
wow.
a very strenuous schedule. And I think that was part of it is, trying to get those stress signals to just lower. And it took
Mm.
such a long time to be like, no, it's okay, I can go back to my usual routine. But in saying that, a musician's life is never dull. So we are
No.
always you're always here, there, and everywhere. And I've started that back up this year as well. It's been really great to get back into that schedule. And I do enjoy living out of a suitcase. So it's a little bit of, up and
Yeah.
down, but home is where the heart is. And I love being back here and just soaking up the love with the fam.
Absolutely. And so as you said before, like, you released your newest single now, Turn the Key, which is fantastic. It's your first release for about a year or so, which is good. Like, that's pretty sweet. Whenabouts did you get time to go into the studio and actually do this one? Was this one sort of done, like, were you in the studio last year, or were you in the studio earlier this year to sort of create this one?
So I took some time out last year when I wasn't able to do live gigs, and
Mm.
I really thought about the direction that I want to go in and how Australian Idol helped me find different ways to make sound. I guess
Mm.
going back to what Dave Grohl said, just making sound,
Hmm.
and it was really inspiring. I did songs, I did Avril Lavigne to Imagine Dragons and
Yeah.
Madonna. Then Landslide.
Ah, I love
As
that
well.
song.
Oh, so great, right?
Fleetwood.
The Landslide was the first song that I ever sang when I was 2 years old. I was just,
Really?
yeah, it's a special song for me.
Damn, 2 years old as well. God, I'm lucky I could even speak when I was 2 years old, let alone sing.
But yeah, so I took that time not to really reinvent, but just to discover more about what I could do. And I was looking at the Grove Studios, which is where I recorded Read Between the Lines and Unconscious Mind. And I
Mm.
really wanted to get back in there. But my producer, Matt, he's living down in Tasmania now. And I was
Okay.
thinking, I do someone a bit more local,
Yeah.
just a little local. And so I looked online and I found a guy by the name of Andy Mack, and he is just so talented. And he's worked with these amazing names. And it was a really big learning curve for me to not listen to the music, but to listen to the actual production to see what I wanted.
Mm.
And he's a pretty big name and a very talented guy that's just so busy. And I messaged the Grove and said, you know what, I'm just going to do this. Is there any chance you could send these songs to Andy? I really want to work with him. And just fully cold called and,
Yeah.
out on the line. And they said, oh, he's pretty busy. We'll send him through. But if he doesn't get back, we're happy to help you find someone else. And I was like,
Yeah.
okay, all I can do is just sit and wait for a little bit. And so about a week later, they sort of sent a follow-up email saying, we haven't heard from him. Like we said, he's really busy.
Mm.
Let us know if you'd like to talk about someone else. And then the day after, he just sent the coolest email. He's like, Piper, songs are great. I'm in. And then signs it off with the letter A. And I was like, oh, this
There
guy's
you go.
and yeah, we got to the studio. I think it was maybe June, July last year. So coming up to a year ago, and we just created some awesome sounds. And
Yeah.
we got Turn the Key was born, and there's been a couple of obstacles since. And I'm so grateful that I get to release this song now. And I'm really keen. We're getting back into the studio soon and recreating that magic again. So it's
Hell yeah.
awesome.
That's fantastic to hear. And it's so cool because, I mean, sometimes music, especially, is such a waiting game when it comes to, like, getting back to people and whatever. And it's one of those things where it's like, everyone is always just so busy. And so it's just like sometimes you just got to wait. And then before you know it, like, the things that you like, sometimes things that you want will come to be, sometimes they won't. But a lot of times it's just like you just got to wait for them to have time to get back to you. And it's cool because sometimes people can be really excited and really want to work with you, but it just
Yeah.
takes them a while to kind of get back to you. But I love the fact that, like, he actually did get back to you. And like, obviously now has worked with you to obviously create this song, which is exciting, very, very exciting. And obviously from obviously, the last couple of years, all that kind of stuff to now the present day, it seems like, you're getting so many opportunities now to be in front of like, really great, well-renowned artists, as well as putting your name out further with the music releases that you have.
Yeah, absolutely. Even these past couple of weeks have been insane, and I don't know if you can see by the shirt, but I just had a
Yes,
really awesome experience with Boy and Bear, which is a great topic to chat about.
absolutely. Go for it.
It was a really hectic weekend. So I was planning to go up on Saturday. I've just become an Operation Smile ambassador, which is
Mhm.
helping volunteers go over to third world countries to work on craniofacial and cleft conditions on children, which is,
Wow.
of course, I've had pallet. So that
Yes.
really is a charity that means a lot to me. And so it was my first event with them for their 25 years. And I was packing and getting ready to go and making sure my guitar was okay. And I got a message from Boy and Bear on Instagram.
Hmm.
They were running a competition about a month beforehand and said, put up a cover. It's 10 years of the Harlequin Dream album, which came out when I was 8. And it was just my album. It was,
Right.
yeah, it was so good that
Awesome.
time. And I was like, I have to cover up, and the winner got to open for them. And I was very, very lucky that they had, liked it and they commented on it. And unfortunately I didn't win the competition, but
Mm.
one of my friends, Olivia, did, and she killed it. She was
Yeah.
amazing. And yeah, I got a message from them saying, hey, we really liked your cover. If you're not free this Sunday, do you want to just come down to the State Theatre in Sydney and sing on stage with us? And I just
Oh.
looking at my phone in absolute disbelief. I was like, I'm just about to go to Brisbane. I hope my
Yeah.
flight can make it in time. And I
Yeah.
looked and it did. And so I immediately messaged them back saying, yes, please let me know whatever I can do to make this happen. And a couple of days later, it was insane. We flew up to Brisbane for my first event as an ambassador, and then the next day we flew back, and I was doing my makeup in the car as we were driving to Sydney, and just like that, I was singing on stage for my first time at the Sydney State Theatre with Boy and Bear for
All
their
right.
Harlequin Dream anniversary tour.
That's insane, isn't it? That's
And
so cool. I mean, if I got a message like that, the first thing I'd be like is like, all right, this isn't like an Instagram bot, surely. Like, just trying to make
I
sure.
know.
It's like, is this legit? I hope it's legit.
Yeah, I was doing the exact same thing, and I was like, yeah, is that a real blue tick? Like, is this actually them?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it was so crazy, and I'm just so grateful. And that's like one of those things you said. I'm really, really lucky to, you know, it's all about putting yourself out there no matter what
Yeah,
happens, I think. And it takes
absolutely.
a lot of confidence. And I'm still working on that confidence factor because it's so scary. I've really
Mm.
taken a leap to cold call for Andy and putting this song out for Boy and Bear, and those little
Mm.
things, you never know what they can add up to, and you never know who's in a room when you're playing, and you always give 100%. And this is just one of those opportunities that I was just so lucky to have been recognized for. And I'm still on a buzz, and it's been maybe a week, and I'm just
Yeah.
still speechless.
I mean, not a lot of people get the opportunity to like, perform on stage with like, one of their favorite bands, or like even with a band that puts out one of their favorite albums. Like, I mean, it's especially obviously being 19 as well. Like, it's not something that happens very often. So it's a real kind of very rare, but such a grateful opportunity that you were able to get to be on stage with them. And it's like, yeah, I couldn't even tell you like what it was that you would have felt in that moment. It would have just been incredible. I mean, there's probably so many different moments so far that you've had that have just been, you know, out of this world. Like, you just wouldn't even know how to react to them. But it's incredible
Oh,
when you get those moments because it just makes you want to keep on going, doesn't it?
exactly right. And I've been really grateful to get the support of a local venue here called Lizottes, which has unfortunately been sold now, and it's moving on to an even more beautiful music live venue now.
Yeah.
But when I first got to it, I was about 12 or 13. I did a live and local night, and
Mhm.
the former owner, Brian, is absolutely amazing. And he said to me, he saw me on that night, and I wasn't doing much at 12 or 13. I was just
Mm.
playing covers at that time. And he said to me, I really like what you do. I want you to come and open for my brother. And his brother was Diesel. And
Oh,
so
wow.
I
Okay.
know, when I was I was 13. I was opening for Diesel, and that was one of those opportunities where I was like, wow, this is a lot. I need to really work for this and put my all in. If someone's going to give me this opportunity, I need to show them, and prove to them, thank you for choosing me for this opportunity. I'm going to show you what I can do. And from that point on, he had supported me with so many other amazing opportunities. And there was one quite recently where I'd opened for Russell Morris, and it's an Australian legend. And I get off stage, I walk upstairs in the green room, and Russell's sitting there with an empty glass of wine. He's like, "So, Piper, red or white?" And I was like, "Oh, this is the coolest thing ever."
The muso's life. It is if you get to that spot, it can be an absolute blessing for sure. Sometimes you can't believe what's happening.
I know. Yeah, there's been some awesome opportunities. An amazing guitarist, Robin Ford, out of United States. He probably had a sold out tour. I'm not exactly sure, but I got to do 2 shows in Newcastle and Sydney with him, and it was that was actually one of the most scariest gigs of my life, because Robin Ford is such a musician, and so the whole crowd was filled with musos, and it was so scary to play, not to impress people, but people are going to be really like focusing on what I'm doing with the guitar, and how I'm singing, and what song and what key, and all of those little intricate pieces.
Real technical side of music.
And that was very scary, but it was just an amazing opportunity. And yeah, I'm so excited for what the future is for my career, and I just really want to keep pushing forward, because there's been so many things in the past that have helped me come to this point now where I can release music again and get these really cool opportunities with people like Boy and Bear. And I'm still so speechless. Yeah, there's nothing really to say than just, oh my God, that happened. I want more of this. Let's do this.
Yeah, I could not agree more with you, Piper. This has been such an amazing chat. Like, I like doing podcasts like this. It makes me so happy that I get to talk to people like you, because it's one of those things where we can have such an amazing conversation and time just flies. And it's just like, wow, it's already over. That's insane. But honestly, it's been so wonderful to have you as a guest today. I've loved talking to you. You have lived probably more than any other 19-year-old that I've ever met in my life. And that is huge, because you've got so much more to come, in the coming years, as you get older, as a musician. Like, you've laid a massive foundation for yourself, and there's only exciting things to come from here, I think. So I thank you so much for joining me today, and I really wish you all the best in the rest of your musical journey.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's been great, and you've really pulled out some things and memories for me too. So this has been wonderful, and thank you so much.
No worries. Must do this again sometime.
Absolutely, Michelle. Let's do it.
Thank you so much for tuning in to the episode this week. I hope you enjoyed the conversation with Piper and myself. Go check out her newest single, Turn the Key. It's just been added to the Chasm Converses playlist. Give her a follow on the socials. Keep up to date with everything that Piper has going on. As for myself, follow me on Instagram or YouTube at This Is Chasm, where you can find reels from my podcast episodes and some clips. And finally, please leave a rating and a review for the show wherever you listen to your podcasts. And I'll see you next week for a new episode with a new guest here on Chasm Converses.